Greetings, citizen, and welcome to the fantastic world of Star Citizen. In this guide, we'll be covering one of the most popular and lucrative professions in the verse, salvage. If you've tried other gameplay like mining, I'm pleased to tell you that salvage is much simpler than most, but it also has a higher barrier of entry. Salvage carries with it only two ways to do it: hand salvage and ship salvage. Hand salvage can be done with either your multi-tool or the dedicated two-handed salvage tool. While this is extremely useful when you're out in the verse, you can't really use it to make money. That just leaves us with ship salvage. Currently, there are just two ships in the verse capable of doing this: the Drake Vulture and the colossal Aegis Reclaimer. These ships sit on completely different ends of the spectrum when it comes to pricing, both in-game and in the RSI store. The Vulture is a fairly new addition to the in-game store compared to the Reclaimer, and only comes in around 2,600,000 AUEC in-game, and it will run you about $175 US in the RSI store. The Reclaimer is a much different story. This behemoth of a vessel costs over 30 million in-game and runs you $400 US in the store. Bear in mind that these are both standalone ships and don't come with game packages, and the Reclaimer is only on sale during special events like Invictus Launch Week or the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, or some of the other little events that go on during the year. If you're looking to get your hands on either in-game, they can both be found at the New Deal down in Lorville. The Vulture is a cozy little ship. You'd be surprised to learn that despite its size, it only carries size 1 components, which is a bummer for the Quantum Drive. It does of course house a bed for bed logging for when you're conducting longer scale operations. The exterior features both a large ramp in the back and a side ladder for easy access to the pilot seat. The rear of the ship includes a 12 SCU cargo grid, although you can cram double that into here. Those arms that extend out from the front of the ship hold our salvage tools. At the tip of either side are our salvage heads. These are what we use to scrape the hull of ships. In between the arms, you will see these cylinders that make up the Ripper system. These enable the Vulture to fracture and absorb the structural salvage of wrecks. The rear includes an asset unique only to salvage ships: the printer. This serves two functions. Primarily, it prints off one SCU boxes of material that you've salvaged, enabling you to sell them or transfer them to another ship. The other cool thing this can do is produce tools that you may need for salvaging, like a tractor beam and a multi-tool. Because it can do this, you really only need to bring the starter suit that you spawn with. With our ship all sorted, we need ships to salvage. Throughout your adventures, you've likely seen ships littering the verse, and those are free game to salvage. Just be sure you turn off the shields before attempting to do so. If you try to salvage a ship with the shields on, it will gain you a crime stat. If you navigate to your contracts manager, you will see an option for salvage. Admittedly, this starts off very small, but increases dramatically the more contracts you complete, enabling you to have access to much larger ships to salvage. These contracts have varying costs to purchase them, but they have no risk involved with them. On the other hand, under the unverified section, you can also find salvage contracts, formerly were known as risky. These also incur a cost and have a time duration before enemy patrols show up and try to engage you, although you do get access to larger ships earlier without completing as many contracts. You will also see contracts called cleanup contracts. These will actually pay you, and you get to keep the salvage provided that you complete them in the required time. Once you have your contract, we are on our way to the salvage site. In 3.23, they added these very obvious waypoints that help for navigation, so make your way over to the wreck, and once you've arrived, press M to switch into salvage mode. You'll see that our HUD has completely changed, but don't worry, these signs are almost identical, but not quite. So let's take a look at what we have going on here. Firstly is our ship states. Here we see several different indicators. The highlighted ones are the ship's current state, and currently that is salvage. HDL and HDR refer to the left and right salvage heads respectively. FRA is for fracture. We will use that to break the wreck into smaller pieces. DIS is for disintegration, used for absorbing those fragmented pieces. Just below these, we can see another set of icons. From left to right is the amount of material left on the highlighted hull section. Next is the total weight of the wreck. This is relevant because different sized tractor beams have different limitations. Lastly is a familiar one. This is the symbol for shields. We can see here that it says off. Like I mentioned before, if you're pulling up to an abandoned player's ship and you want to know if the shields are off before attempting to salvage, this is a quick way to figure out if they are on or off. On either side, we see the modules equipped to that salvage head. On a stock Vulture, we have the cinch module on the number 1 slot on both sides, and this is the precision scraper head. On the left side in the number 2 slot is a tractor beam, and on the right side is the abrade module. Beside these, you can see the stats for that scraper. With salvage heads, you have the cinch, abrade, and trawler modules. Each one gains more surface area at the cost of efficiency. And what I mean by that is the cinch has the smallest area that it covers, but will get you the most material for the hull that you're scraping. As you get bigger with the abrade and trawler, they cover a larger area so you can scrape much faster and be done sooner, but you won't get as many boxes of material. Because the cinch is more precise and gets you more material, I would suggest using this if you're trying to maximize your profits on any given wreck. Because the abrade and trawler modules have much bigger areas that they cover, you're going to lose material at the cost of those quicker speeds. These two are a lot better for those cleanup missions I mentioned before. Personally, I like swapping the cinch modules for 2 abrade modules on my own Vulture. Moving down, we can see the hull surface indicator, telling us if it's a valid salvage section that we're aiming at. The distance meter shows us how far we are from the wreck, kind of like mining. But it is different from mining because there is no optimal distance to salvage. Ideally, you want to be close enough that your beams overlap, but not so close that they are spread apart. You can adjust this by changing the relative spacing if there's a distance that you like better than the default 35 meters that it sits at. Beside that is a circle that shows us how much material is left directly where our salvage head is facing, and beneath that is the rate at which you are collecting material. Right now you will notice it's at 0 because we aren't collecting anything. Lastly is the filler station status at the bottom right. This was a huge quality of life improvement in 3.22, enabling you to stock up to 13 boxes worth of material before needing to go print. Before, you had to go back and forth to print every single box. It was really time consuming. Now that we understand the UI, let's get started. Left click to activate the salvage heads and begin stripping the hull. Ah yes, there's that beautiful glow of salvaging we all love. As you draw your lasers across the hull, you will burn away to reveal the ship frame underneath, and your filler station will begin to, well, fill. If you don't want to move your ship, you can press G for gimbal mode and it will simply move the lasers only. Do what works best for you. There's no right or wrong way here. You can switch between modules by right clicking. If you left click like before, it will activate both sides. While this is pretty cool, it's not exactly functional. Let's turn these off and instead press right Alt A to activate just the left side. Press it again to turn it off. Press right Alt D does the same thing before the right side. Continue scraping in whatever pattern jimmies your pickle, and we'll be right back. I've interrupted this video at a completely random time to ask you to drop a like, and if you found this video somewhat helpful, subscribe. Maybe the next video I make is exactly what you're looking for. Anyway, back to the guide. Alright, up to this point we've been collecting one material, Recycled Material Composite, or RMC for short. Each box of this is worth about 14 to 20k depending on when and where you're selling it. Next, we will collect our structural salvage. This is called construction material and is only worth about 1500 per box, a noticeable difference in value. You do not have to collect this if you don't feel it's worth the space in your Vulture, so don't feel like you're forced to. To create this material, we need to first fracture the ship into smaller pieces. You can do this by pressing right Alt W. Pretty cool, right? Get close enough to the wreck, hold it there until it breaks into pieces. Once fractured, switch to disintegration by pressing right Alt S. On top of your filler station, it will tell you how much material you will get from the piece that you are currently aiming at. Once you've gathered all your material, it's going to be time to print your boxes. Exit the seat and head back to the printer station. Once you access the screen, the first thing you want to do is check autofill. This will make the station continually print boxes until you've finished with the material you've selected. Next, it should show you two materials, one for RMC and one for construction materials. Pick whichever one you'd like to print first and click start. It will begin printing boxes until it runs out of that material. Just grab the box as it comes off the conveyor belt and place it where you'd like. Once that material is done, do the same thing for the other one. As I mentioned before, you can stack boxes on the grid and you can put them in the walkway to double your space and value in your storage area. Before heading to sell, make sure you fill up your filler station one last time with 13 SCU of material, so you basically have 39 boxes total in your Vulture, the 26 that you have printed out, and the 13 on standby in the station. This means each full trip should net you about 500,000 AUC. Not too bad, huh? Now we're off to sell. To do this, head to your local city and go ahead and park your Vulture. These two materials are, oddly enough, sold at different locations. Weird, I know. The construction material is sold at the admin office. You may be familiar with this if you're a cargo hauler. The RMC is sold at the TDD. This is a place that might be more familiar with our miners out there. After you've sold your material, be sure to head back to your Vulture and print those other 13 boxes so you can sell those as well. And that's it. Congratulations, you are now certified to conduct salvage operations in the verse. Thank you so much for watching, best of luck in your adventures in the verse, and I'll see you guys in the next one.